If I were to tell you that your brain can't tell the difference between emotional pain and physical pain, you probably wouldn't believe me. But that is the exact reason why you feel grief so intensely and why you can get stuck in the endless cycle of grief and loss. In this video, we're going to be discussing the 3 daily habits that will radically interrupt the grief loop in your brain and help you move forward in healing. Hey, I'm Kelli Nielsen. And after having overcome my own deep personal loss, I created a faith-based, neuroscience-informed process for my own healing that has also set hundreds of other people free from grief and pain. So let's dive into the topic. Okay, what are the 3 daily habits that will revolutionize your grief recovery? First, I want to give a little caveat. When I tell you these 3 habits, you're not going to like it. It's not that you're not going to like it, but it's going to feel like things that you may not feel like doing. But I want to encourage you to think about other times when you might be struggling or sick, and how so often the remedy, the things that we need to do to get better, are the things we least feel like doing. So I want to preface this before we even talk about the 3 things. If you hear me saying one of these 3 things and it feels like craziness to you, or it's the last thing that you feel like doing, I want to encourage you. When you need to lose weight, maybe the last thing you feel like doing is exercising, but it's that exercise that creates the change. So that is the preface I want to give. Okay, the first and most important foundational and fundamental thing that you can do each and every day for your healing is meditate on positive, not just positive thoughts, but a specific framework. This is something that I talk about a lot in our program, creating a foundational framework for yourself, for your healing journey and recovery. That literally is a math equation that you are giving your brain to solve. And when you tell your brain, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, this is what we're going to think about, once you do that long enough, your brain will eventually accept it as truth. And your brain will accept that this is where we're going. And it will begin to find all sorts of things to help support that journey. It will find resources, it will provide energy, it will provide everything you need for whatever equation you've given it. So if you don't have a statement or a framework for yourself, a couple of points. A, this is part of what we help folks to do, to identify what is their personal statement that's going to help them the most with the thoughts that they're dealing with as it relates to grief and loss. But secondly, you're welcome to borrow mine. And I've said this in several other videos. When I lost my son, the thing that I kept saying over and over was, he's not gone, he's just not here. I will see him again one day, and we will have all of eternity to spend together. Now, I didn't even fully realize the extent of what I was doing when I was doing it. I just kept saying that to myself over and over again. It's out loud, sometimes in my head. I had it written down. I said it over and over. And then several weeks after he passed away, and I felt a moment of his absence very strongly and profoundly, what came up out of my mouth was, he's not gone, he's just not here. I will see him again one day, and we'll have all of eternity to spend together. So I invite you to borrow my statement if it's helpful to you, but it's actually the most powerful when you can have your own personalized statement, something that directly attacks the thoughts that are most problematic for you. For me, the biggest thought was, he's gone, he's gone, he's not here anymore, he's gone. That's what I just kept thinking. And it was like alarm bells going off inside of me. And so that's where my framework came from. For some people, it's different thoughts that are most problematic. So having that grounding statement that you are going to recite each and every day is the most foundational thing. And if you can't come up with a framework, or you don't want to borrow my framework, I would encourage you to find scripture. Find a scripture that speaks to you in this moment, that speaks to your pain, but also God's faithfulness and who you are believing God to be, what you are hoping and believing for your healing. A couple other quick things about this before we move on to step 2 is making sure that it is present tense, that you are saying you are walking in healing, you are learning how to be happy again. It's something that you are actively doing right now. That is going to help your brain to accept it as truth, and again, to help you find that path moving forward. So that is the first foundational daily habit that I want you to embrace. The second one, now this is where I may ruffle some feathers. I want you to practice daily laughter. Now, I know that it may feel like the last thing on earth that you feel like doing. You may think that laughing right now is impossible, that you might as well be walking on the moon, right? Like, it may feel impossible to laugh. It also may feel offensive to laugh. You may have thoughts in your head right now like, how can I possibly laugh right now? Like, this is the deepest pain I've ever experienced. This is the most significant loss I've ever experienced. How can I laugh when my child is gone? How can I laugh when my spouse is gone? Fill in the blank, right? I hear you, and that is why it's so powerful. See, our brains get flooded with all sorts of negative emotions and hormones and all that kind of stuff, and laughter is a very powerful antidote to that. So, a couple of practical applications. How can you laugh every day? What's a couple things that you could do to make sure that once a day you're getting laughter into your system on purpose? Watch a funny show, watch silly little memes on social media, watch animal videos of animals or babies doing silly things. There's a million things that you can do. But I'm going to share another one with you, which I think is hilarious and you may not know. Did you know that laughter is contagious? And if you're around someone that's laughing, you're pretty likely to start laughing as well, just like yawns are contagious. But the other thing is, if you look at yourself in a mirror, you can actually make yourself laugh. If you will just start laughing, even though it's a fake laugh, if you start laughing, within 10 seconds or so, you're going to find yourself genuinely laughing because you're going to be laughing at yourself and how silly you sound trying to do this forced and fake laugh. So if all else fails, you don't find anything funny to watch, you're not around other people who are laughing, you can literally, and I find it most funny to look at yourself in the mirror and just start laughing. And I promise you, it will not take very long before you're genuinely laughing. So that is habit number 2. Find a way to incorporate daily laughter at least once a day. Okay. And the third one is a gratitude list. And again, I understand, please hear me when I say that I know how impossible this seems and how it feels like a betrayal to be looking for things to be grateful for when you've lost someone you love and you're in so much pain. I want to also say there's a reason that I'm only giving you 3 things, because I know how overwhelmed and exhausted you are. I know that your cognitive reasoning right now is hindered. I know that you're experiencing exhaustion that you've never known. So that's why we only are giving you 3 things, because I don't want to overwhelm you. I don't want to add more to your plate. Okay. So to recap, we are going to have daily framework and sentences we're going to meditate on. We are going to incorporate daily laughter. And then the third is daily gratitude. So we need to train our brains to see that there are still good things in the world. Yes, we lost our loved one. Yes, it's incredibly painful. Finding things to be grateful for does not undo or minimize any of the pain of the loss. It doesn't mean you don't love your person. It doesn't mean you're not even hurting and that you're not going through this really dark time in your life. But what is happening is so powerful when we learn how to shift our focus to the fact that there still is good in the earth and we force our brain to see it, right? So if every day you will find 5 things just in a journal, on your phone, however it's best, force your brain to find 5 things that you're grateful for each and every day. Again, this does so much to combat all the negative emotions, and we're going to go into the brain science of it in the next section a little bit. But you can be grateful for oxygen. You can be grateful for food. You can be grateful for shelter. You can be grateful for food in your house and friends that are supporting you. And I would encourage you, try as much as you can, like, if it's the same list every day for a while, it just is what it is. But try to find new and interesting things to be grateful for. We are doing powerful, powerful work in our minds when we can do that gratitude list. So before we move on to the next section, I do want to say, if you're hearing this and you are like, Kelli, this sounds great, I don't know that I can actually do this and I need a little more help and structure, I want to encourage you to check out the link in the description for more help on how to practically walk this out. But next, I want to move on to what is some of the science behind these things. Why would being grateful and repeating the sentence and laughing every day, how's that going to radically transform my grief recovery process? Okay, so as we mentioned, grief recovery, healing happens in small steps. It doesn't happen in one fell swoop moment. Like, you don't have some like aha moment and then you're just healed from grief, right? It happens step by step, moment by moment, decision by decision, thought by thought. I always use the analogy of like a weight loss journey or a health journey, that every decision you make towards better health, eating healthy and exercising, those are all little building blocks, building bricks for a healthier you. The same goes with grief recovery. Every time you can shift your focus to what you're grateful for. That's another block. Every day that you can give your brain and your body some laughter instead of just being inundated with sorrow and sadness and all of those chemicals, that's a building block, okay? And then the framework is the most powerful building block, because when you are meditating on your framework day in and day out, every day that's a building block, but eventually within 60 to 90 days, those building blocks become received and accepted as truth. And that, my friend, is when your whole lens changes. Once you've been doing that framework work for 60 to 90 days, you now have reset or preset your default setting to one of healing, to one of moving forward. Whatever you have stated in that framework sentence for 60, 90 days, you now have changed the lens that you're looking through. So you will find your daily laughter is just that much easier. Seeing things to be grateful for is that much easier. And you will find people and opportunities and additional resources for your healing. That is the power of the subconscious mind. And that is the power of the rewiring work that we do with people. Grief deeply affects your brain. But through these actions every day, you can take back your brain. You can heal your brain from the effects of grief and loss. You can take back control and autonomy. You don't have to be a victim to grief. You don't have to feel miserable forever. But it does, my friend, take consistent actions every day and for a long enough period of time for those changes to go in effect. So why don't we talk about that? The last point is, okay, I'm going to commit to doing these daily habits. How long do I have to do it before we're going to start seeing an effect? Well, the real win is 60 to 90 days, but I'm here to tell you, even within the first week to 2 weeks, if you're doing all three, if you're saying your framework every day, you're doing the daily laughter, and you're finding things to be grateful for, you're going to feel a shift in your energy within the first week to 2 weeks. In fact, a lot of folks that I work with, especially the framework, you can use the framework as a daily exercise to do the rewiring in your brain, but the framework also becomes a tool for coping. So when you have a grief wave, when you're feeling really heavy or sad, you can use that as a grounding statement. You can combine it with going for a walk or journaling or doing box breathing, some other sort of modality or self-care, but that statement, you will find, becomes kind of like a safe place. It becomes an anchor. It becomes a grounding thing for you to come back to over and over again, to remind yourself that you are safe, you are healing, you are learning how to live life in this new place. You are day by day rediscovering joy and happiness. You are navigating this terrain without your person. You are discovering new things every day. You're learning new skills every day. These are just all sentences that you could potentially use, but it's so important that we tell our brain, this is what we're doing. Our brain is going to go all over the place, and it's going to respond to our feelings. It's going to respond to the chemicals that are produced by certain thoughts. It's going to respond to memories and triggers and all the things. But we don't have to let it run amok, kind of like a toddler child, right? Like, it's going to run and do what it does until and unless we instruct it what we want it to do. And much like a toddler child, when we give it repetition, when we give it repeated instruction consistently, and we let that toddler know, this is actually what I mean, and I mean what I say, and I say what I mean, and we do that consistently, eventually our brain will say, oh, okay, this is what it is. The problem is when we don't do it long enough or we're inconsistent with it, much like with a toddler child, if you tell them they can't have cookies, but they beg and plead, and you give in and give them cookies, they have learned that if they just do it long enough, you'll eventually give in and give them cookies. Same thing with your brain. Your brain is overwhelmed and there's all kinds of chaos going on, and it's gonna focus on the pain of the loss because that is like alarm bells going off in your system. And it's gonna go back to that and go back to that and go back to that. And so we need to, just like a loving parent, say, yes, I know that's true and I know that hurts. And here's where we're gonna focus. And here's how we're gonna move forward. And here's what we're doing now. We're not negating or minimizing or stuffing the pain. This is not about pretending the loss didn't happen. It's not about stuffing or ignoring the loss or the emotions associated with it. What it is channeling and directing them and processing them in a way that provides for a healthy release and a preferred future. And our brains will follow our direction once we are consistent enough with it. So I hope that you will embrace and adopt these 3 healing habits. If you do, you will see a significant difference within a couple of weeks, and definitely within 60 to 90 days. So we've talked today about how to heal your brain, but if you want to learn more about how did your brain get so jumbled up in the first place, check out this other video about what happens to your brain during grief and loss.